Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we love talking about collaboration and lifting our community. That's why we're honored to have with us Dwania Kyles. She is a part of the Memphis 13. She's a co-founder and president of the Memphis 13 Foundation, and also Rabbi Micah Greenstein with Temple Israel Memphis. How are you two doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Jeremy. I am so happy to be here, and thank you for the invitation and the exposure.
I'm so honored to be with you and Dwania, Jeremy. It's great to be here.
Well, each of you are doing amazing things when it comes to powering the good here in our community. We'll talk about that to highlight each of you separately, but then this collaboration together, to me, is really, really important. And so we're going to have a lot of powerful deep dives on this conversation, but let's start with the Memphis 13 Foundation. So, Dwania, give us some background, because as I mentioned at the onset, you are an alum, you're part of the Memphis 13, so this is a personal storyline for you, but give us some background on the Memphis 13 Foundation.
The Memphis 13 were the first 13 African-American boys and girls that desegregated public schools in Memphis, Tennessee back in 1961. We were 5 and 6 years old at the time. We were first graders. We were babies, as Shelby says in the film. And in 2011, Daniel Keel, who I came to find out is a member of Temple Israel, in 2011 released a film on a documentary on the Memphis 13. And while it has been seen, it's been in festivals, it's not been really embraced in Memphis on a level. So when our 60th was coming up, Daniel and I had kind of talked about it in 2018. Maybe we should start a nonprofit. You know how that goes. And then, 2020 hits. And that's the year that we're getting ready to turn 60, and the film is turning 10 years old. And so we took that idea and said, you know what, because we had that kind of time at that time. You know what, let's do a nonprofit. Let's do that nonprofit. So September 29th, 2021, we did a press conference at Bruce Elementary, where the first mural of the three of us that went to Bruce, there were 4 schools: Bruce, Roselle, Gordon, and Springdale. And that was where the first one was done. What better place to have a press conference announcing the formation of the Memphis 13 Foundation, the 501c3. And our focus is to ensure that the legacy of the Memphis 13 lives on, while at the same time rallying communities, our community in Memphis, first of all, so that we can all take part in this opportunity to tell our stories and to heal from our stories. And so to curate a diverse group of people to come and begin to listen, and not just listen to the documentary or see it with our eyes and ears, but to begin to see it and feel it with our heart, and to have shared conversations about that time. And we all have a desegregation or integration story. So that's really what we are kind of doing over at the Memphis 13 Foundation.
We've had a chance to interview you for our Changemakers podcast, for TV shows and radio, and you have an amazing personal story when you look at your family, both of your parents being civil rights on the movement with, MLK. Like, there's so many powerful storylines for you growing up, for your family. The thing that I've always loved is your approach, just like you're already feeling the energy around love, bringing our city together and healing, but also through these shared dialogues. And so you mentioned the murals. Give us a couple of other important things that the Memphis 13 Foundation is doing in the community around this healing and collaboration.
We are so excited. We are literally about 20 25 months old. And what we've been able to accomplish has just been short of magical and miraculous. We now have murals at all of the 4 schools of pictures of images of the students on the very first day of school. So that was October 3rd, 1961. Now you go to Springdale, that one's outdoors. So it's, and I'm talking about these murals are anywhere from 20 to 40 feet high almost, especially the one outside. And then the beautiful ones at Roselle on 2 different walls. Bruce was first, but then, and we ended with Gordon. And the stories are just so fabulous because at each one of them, we had mural reveals. And at the last one, we had Judge Tarek Sugarmon come and address. And it was at Gordon, which is now an alternative school. So that was very powerful for him to be a part of that. But we also worked very hard with the Library of Congress, University of Memphis, and Memphis Shelby County Schools, and the Memphis 13 to co-create a curriculum to be taught in Memphis Shelby County Schools in 2nd and 5th grade right now. So it just went in at the end of last school term. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, just ensuring that the principals are invested and the teachers are invested. So when they're teaching the kids, they can understand that no matter how young or old they are, they do have a voice, and just that touch them with that social justice seed. So we're very excited about that work as well. We've done something with StoryCorps, but Look Back, Launch Forward is the project that we are focused on right now. And with the help of the Shelby County Commission and along with Erika, Commissioner Erika Sugarmon, we were able to get some funding to help with this particular initiative, which is definitely a community engagement, so perfect for City Current, but a community engagement project where we are screening the film 4 times. And at Temple Israel, that was our 2nd screening of the film. We'll be doing 2 more before the end of the year, one possibly around September, late September or so, and then the last one probably early November. But we've had such great feedback from it
Well, and that's the perfect segue over to Temple Israel. So, Micah, go ahead and give us some background on Temple Israel Memphis, because similarly, you do so much good in the community. So give us some background there, and then let's talk about why this collaboration is so important. So give us some background.
Well, first, before I do that, Jeremy, I just want to applaud City Current because unscripted, last night I had the TV on when the local news began, and if it bleeds, it leads. I think if it's good, it should be shared. And that's what you're doing. So bless you, friend, especially in the city where the streets are paved with soul and where there are more churches than gas stations. Now, Temple's not a church, but we are part of the community of faith, and we've been a beacon of social justice and a ray of hope, like I like to say, a rainbow in the clouds of injustice and racial segregation and dehumanization in all forms. The seat I'm in right now was occupied by one of my heroes, in addition to Dwana's father, Rabbi James Wax, who would lead the Memphis Ministers Association before, during, and after the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And 50 years before him, Rabbi Feinschreiber was the first clergyman of any faith to speak out against the Ku Klux Klan. So this synagogue is rooted in social justice and inspiring conversations about what it means to live in the image of God, inclusion, equity, social change.
When you Look Back, Launch Forward, the movie night hosted at Temple Israel, give us a little recap from your perspective, and then we'll tie that into the to me, the higher purpose of bringing our community together, all faiths, all skin colors, genders, like everyone really having this important conversation. And one, why it's important, but also two, why it matters for the future of Memphis and for our nation and world. So give us a recap from your end.
Well, it was a really special evening, Jeremy, with the Memphis 13 here just days ago. 400 people across all religious, racial, zip code, generational, and other lines, looking back, launching forward. This documentary, first of all, is not only heartbreaking and inspiring, but required viewing by anyone who's human, not just a Memphian, but that it came from here, that what started here changed the world and changes worlds. And one of the exercises Dwania did was with Erika, was to ask those of us out in the audience after screening it side by side, heart to heart, to share her story, their story, his story. And that was as powerful, I don't want to say but almost as powerful as the documentary itself.
Staying on, with you, and then we'll switch over to Dwania. What are some of the takeaways when you look at what this means for you personally, for our community? What you kind of talk about some of the takeaways, carry that into what are the action steps that you hope to accomplish, not just with this screening, but really this heartfelt movement that Memphis is so needing of in terms of the positive news, inspiration, being a force for good. What do you hope this creates as a catalyst for our community?
I hope it reminds us, Jeremy, that no matter what our faith tradition, whether we're Christian, Jewish, agnostic, Muslim, whatever, we're all God's partners in healing and transforming the community that is into the one we all pray for and want. I mean, God has no other hands but these. There's an old expression the early rabbis coined: pray as if everything depends on God, but act as if everything depends on you. And those first graders were our actors in 1961. And, the first question in the Bible, as literature even, forget about as a faith, is where are you? That's what God asks Adam. Now, whoever created us doesn't need to ask that question. It wasn't a GPS question. But I think this experience with the Memphis 13 Foundation forces each of us to answer that question. Where are you? And we are in this city that is a model, not just for all the challenges of urban, large cities in America, but also the possibility for change right here. And bottom line, I'm reminded, because it warms my heart, that Dwania's father and my predecessor, Rabbi Wax, locked arms together like King and Rabbi Heschel in Selma. And just one final quote I'll never forget, that we forfeit the right to worship God when we denigrate the image of God in another human being. And I think what that night and what Memphis is about is seeing the image of God in every person. And we can be that catalyst, not just for our city, but I think for our nation and for the world.
Yeah, and I think what you're bringing up is it's centering us. It's giving us a higher purpose and clarity, calling us to be upstanders and not bystanders, taking action. So Dwania, carry that into your hopes, because I know for you, once again, this is personal. You want people to understand this is a Memphis story that's being told globally, but for us to better understand, equip ourselves with the historical perspective, but the clarity, the higher purpose to take action together, to heal, to move forward with love. So share that from your vantage point of what do you hope all of this accomplishes? What are the action steps looking forward?
Absolutely. First of all, I co-sign everything Rabbi Micah just said. I mean, And it's so hard to contain myself because I'm an extremely, it's all about how's the feeling? How are you feeling? And so I just want to talk about the energy in the room that night. From the time people walk through the door, you just know that energy. It's just that buzz, and people are happy. People are there because they want to be there. And one of the biggest things that we are interested in doing is, while we are definitely sharing the film so that we can all share our story. It's such a wonderful platform to do that, so that we can all be a part of sharing our story and doing it in that kind of energetic space where there was just so much love in that room. At one point, I was sitting between Rabbi Micah and Dwania Kyles, and Erika was on the Commissioner Sugarmon was on the other. I'm trying on the other side. I just felt like I was back in high school or something. That energy, people were saying things in the back. It was so wonderful. And to be able to have a platform where we can really talk about our hearts and our stories. That is what connects us more than anything else, is our stories. And I think that if we're really able to listen to each other with that compassion, and there was so much compassion in the room. And to be perfectly honest, Jeremy, it is that love, it is that compassion, it is that kindness, it is that joy. Those are the things that are very instrumental in helping us heal, not just from trauma, because we think, trauma. No, not just from trauma, but for whatever, trauma inevitably leads to another disease. So if we're approaching life from a compassionate space, and knowing what that feels like and choosing to want to feel that, because what we're also very much interested in is moving people into action, not just the same few people, not just the same few organizations that are leading the way. No, we're all capable of leading the way if we take enough time to just breathe and open our hearts. It was a heart coherence exercise that I did. And the focus was to breathe in, think you're breathing in through your heart and exhaling. And you're breathing in through your nose, but you're inhaling and exhaling through your heart to expand that heart, because that's where oxytocin is made. And that oxytocin is one of the most healing hormones in the body. So we're also giving people tools that they can walk out with right now and begin to use in their lives and see a difference. So that if we can start, Michael Jackson says it best when I'm talking to kids about this, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. It starts with me in the mirror. I have to want to be joy. I have to want to be happiness. I can't look at what happened. I can't look at what happened in 1961 or 1968 or last week and hold on to the anger of it, because we will stay there. That's where we will stay. That's why we've been here too long. People always say, well, how do you feel about the schools being as segregated now as they were in 1961? I was like, in 1961, it was about the law. Now it's about transformation. Rabbi Micah spoke of that's what we're doing now. Transformation. We have to transform ourselves individually, and it starts with our hearts. It really does. And all I can say again, and Rabbi Micah knows how much I am so appreciative for him opening and his parishioners opening up the synagogue and letting us have that beautiful, wonderful time so people can continue to connect. And see, people come, and I have repeat people that come because you want to be in that energetic space of what's happening and other human beings. We're just coming and we're just being human beings. And the sharing of the stories, it was a magical night, to say the least.
And Rabbi Micah, I want you to carry this forward, because I think what's interesting too is Dwania, as you're tripping up over titles, the reality is these are all friends, right? So you know them personally. So everybody's on a first name basis because we're all friends and community together. And that takes time. That takes intentionality, people coming together to create bonds, relationships. And when you have a relationship, it changes the way you look at each other. And so I think the intention around bringing diverse groups, organizations together and, allowing all of these different groups to come together brings different people together to create relationships. And when you get to know someone personally, it's very hard then to put them on the fringe because now you care about them. And I feel like that's a big part of what we need is in a world that faces right now an epidemic around isolation, bringing us together to realize, wait a second, we all are very, very similar. And we have a shared heart for improving our lives, improving our families, doing, things that are fun, but around these relational opportunities to get to know each other better. That's a big part of where then the healing and caring about each other and making sure that nothing bad happens to each other because we genuinely care, the magic starts to happen. So Rabbi Micah, on your end, talk about that in terms of the importance of bringing diverse groups together and what it does for our community.
Jeremy, it's so easy to misperceive the other when you don't know the other. And it's not that hard. Think about the story of the Memphis 13, and as my Shiro Dwania said, it could be about anger, it could be about strife, it could be about discord. But what she and the Memphis 13 Foundation are radiating is love, compassion, and good. And it's not that hard. As I was listening to both of you, you reminded me one of the insights I took away from that night is devoting my life to community building and religious and racial reconciliation. And the processes, their strategies, and building trust. This was one night of people who actually didn't all know each other. Most did not. And it wasn't that hard. So after this screening, Jeremy, this stunning woman behind me happened to be African American sharing her story. She stands up, and because Dwania and the panel asked people to share their stories, and she says, so my story is I moved here from Chicago, to Memphis around this time, and we bought a house and somebody called us blackbusters. Like I never heard that phrase before when a black family moves onto the, into the neighborhood. She was this middle class, upper middle class woman who's just moving to Memphis. And, that kind of rocks your world. Who is this person? And, oh yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. And I'm not even black. So I don't know if that connects with what you were. This episode could come across as, oh, it's all frou-frou and Pollyannish and utopian. No, it was like instant compassion, love, and good. Now, strategically directed by Dwania, that exercise helped. But all I'm saying is, I didn't know most of those people. And the panel of the Memphis 13, those twins who were in the class with Dwania, you knew them after their first sentence, even if you never met them before.
Well, and I go back to when you talk about like the power of volunteerism, right? Physically serving together. Your hearts align to a higher purpose. When you're in a room together and you're sharing your personal story or you're sharing the experience of watching the documentary and seeing what others have gone through, but then the love and the compassion and the healing and the activation around how do we then carry this forward with positive momentum, it changes you and it changes the way you look at others and the way you look at your community. And I think that to me is the bigger picture of this is when you talk about understanding the past, the historical perspective, but ultimately what do we do to move our city forward together in community? I think that's where then the next step is, okay, we need to be intentional. We need to take action. We need to have guided conversations, but that carries us into, Dwania, like what do we do as next steps to help and support the Memphis 13 Foundation and be a part of these next steps and these next journeys to heal our community, to bring it closer together, to create these relationships, and to power the good together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are many things that we can do. One of the things that we can do is, as we continue to move forward doing the screenings, to, even if you've seen it, then bring somebody who hasn't seen it, bring your family members, bring your church members, bring your neighbors, tell them about it, volunteer and work with us. There's more than enough work. There's more than enough work to do, and nonprofits. But to be involved, share that story, begin to talk about that story, talk to your children about what your experiences have been, and let's do it. But the only thing that we're asking is to do it from a place of love, to do it from a place of compassion. Because yes, I love what Toni Morrison said about integration in the United States, because it was the social experiment that ushered integration in on the level that we are experiencing it in the world today. It was at that time, especially in this nation. And she said it was one of the most honorable things Americans did, and we never celebrated ourselves for it. We never did. We immediately started undermining it and talking about why it didn't work when it did work. So to be able to have the opportunity to come together, and that's why I think sharing all of our stories together is so important, because they are just filled with so much wisdom. It's filled with pain, filled with joy. And to see what life really is. It was about the law in 1961. So why are schools as segregated now as they were in 1961? If we do not change our hearts, we will continue, as we have been, repeating the same thing over and over and over again. It's not history. The only reason history repeats itself is because human beings repeat. We've got to get ourselves out of that loop. We don't feel good in that loop. People aren't happy in that loop. You can't, I can't meet fire with fire because we're just going to burn everything down. There will always be some sort of separatism if we don't make a conscious effort to change that and to want joy, to want to experience happiness. I really feel, and I'm in the field of wellness, and I feel personally that there's so much sickness in the world because we are not living it from our hearts. We're living in our heads and intellectually and news and what's going on and why I should hate you and why I shouldn't like that and all of that. But for people to, allow themselves to have this conversation and to share their stories, you can always donate. Go to the Memphis 13 m13f.org and donate so that we can continue, because we are going to keep on continuing telling and sharing this story until we've touched as many people as possible. We just wanted to mushroom out of Memphis first. That's all.
Yeah, so I love having you come on the show. So always a source of inspiration, but knowledge dropping left and right. I love it. So the website again, M13, so the number 13, m13f.org is the website. And so carry that into how can we support Temple Israel? So talk about how can we get behind Temple Israel?
Our sanctuary is intentionally in a semicircle because we're supposed to live the words we pray, or, as I said before, prayer has to lead to action. I think the best way to support Temple Israel, our mission is to be a force for good for the city of Memphis and for all God's people, not for ourselves. So don't worry about giving money to our synagogue, even though, of course, we need it. Worry about helping our city, which needs all of us even more than any one of our churches or synagogues.
Carry that into one or two things that you want the community to know in terms of programming around the year, opportunities to get involved. So touch on a few ways in the larger scene that the public is invited in.
Sure. I think perhaps it's because of COVID, Jeremy, and this whole Zoom. I mean, there are advantages. We're doing this show this way. But I think we all got in our silos. And so some of the bridge building causes, whether it be bridge builders for youth, or whether it be MIFA, or the legacy organizations that came out of the era of the Memphis 13, they need renewal and reinvigoration, and they need a new generation. And so I think one thing we could do is to, as you just did with the Memphis 13 Foundation, re-educate people, make people more aware of why there's so many nonprofits in Memphis trying to address the issues everybody claims to care about, from healthcare, church health, to interfaith, to education. So that would be my call, is for us to pretend as though the person you're meeting knows nothing about anything we've said today. And fill their heart with it, as Dwania said, not just their head. Fill their heart with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for all of us, when you put on the hat of being a community champion, it changes the way you interact with each other and the calling and the higher purpose and getting people involved. And then, when you get involved, you see the beauty unfold. You make all these beautiful new friendships and relationships, but you see the beauty of the city. And then you have a chance to be that inspiration for somebody else and to guide and help, be a role model for others to get involved as well. And that's how we can all be change makers and get involved in our city in so many beautiful ways. And so the website for Temple Israel, timemphis.org. So timemphis.org. And then once again for the Memphis 13 Foundation, m13f.org. So Dwania Kyles, Rabbi Micah Greenstein, thank you for all you do to power the good here in the community. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you both for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
It was a joy and a privilege. Thank you so much, Jeremy and Dwania.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.